Welcome to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. Hello, I'm Brian Fernandez, and today the spotlight is on Temus, a Singaporean Temasek-backed digital transformation firm spearheading the company on a strong growth momentum over the past 2 years. Now, today the company has over 450 employees across the Asia-Pacific region and continues to work with a wide range of clients across various sectors such as defense, government, healthcare, and sustainability. Now, today we have our guest, Mr. Srijay Ghosh. He's the founding member and Chief Revenue Officer at Temus. Srijay, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Great to see you again. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on, Srijay. Now, Srijay, for a start, could you give us a quick overview of Temus and your background as well, because you're from the mother company, Temasek.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Happy to do it. Quick background with myself. I'm an engineer by education, and I worked across various industries. I was in the semiconductor industry in my early life. Then I worked in the banking industry, in investment banking. Then in Temasek, I was on the investment side, investing in technology, media, and telecom companies. And then within Temasek, the idea of Temus took birth, which is where I kind of took over the responsibility to kind of create Temus from scratch. Now, Temus was founded in April 2021. I'll talk a little bit about the roots of Temus. This was really to build a Singapore-anchored company, focusing on end-to-end digital transformation, but having a very value-centric approach towards driving transformation, where technology is only a means to driving that value. And while we do that, and as we work with various clients, the key objective was to build core capabilities and talent in Singapore. So those were the founding principles on which Temus was founded. And, it's been about 3.5 years and been a fascinating journey growing Temus.
Now, Srijay, I want to zoom in on that. So as part of this, the genesis of this company, the partnership started with a partnership with UST, obviously to bring global capabilities and so forth. But what is very, very interesting is, again, the social agenda, which is really about upskilling Singaporeans as such. Talk to us about the Step Up program that you were heavily involved in and how that transformed people from non-tech backgrounds into technologists.
Yep. Brian, the key thing to note here, and even before I talk about Step It Up, is when you think about transformation, there is a philosophy and principle that we follow that transformation begins and ends with people. That is very important because technology, AI, and all the other tools to make transformation happen are benefiting ultimately the people. And when you think about people, in the context of public sector, it is the citizens. In the context of education, it is the students. Context of private sector, it is the customers. So when you think about that, I think as we were designing Temus, one was that end customer, citizen, user-centric mindset, but also to think about talent, think about transforming talent as we build the capabilities in-house in Temus. So those were the first principles on which we were started. And if you think about tech talent in Singapore, and I'm sure this is the same situation in some of our neighboring countries, that tech talent is very limited. It's a red ocean, and people are fighting for talent from the same pool. Now, if you think about Temus, our aspirations to make an impact in Singapore and Singapore's smart nation aspirations, that will be realized only if talent is also transformed in Singapore. And which is why Step It Up was founded with those principles to say that, hey, here we have a program that takes people from non-tech background, from that non-red ocean, and transforms them into tech and really widens that funnel of tech talent.
Now, talk to us again, Srijay, around your substantial growth. I mean, you've been growing at a tear. You're 400 plus people now. Where have you identified the sweet spots and niches in consulting? Because It's a tough space out there. Digital transformation has the large, you're competing with the large global giants out there. Where have you found a sweet spot and what has been the factors for your success?
Yes, I always say when Temus started, it was a very unusual startup because it was a startup in a very mature industry. Um, this was not like we are trying to recreate a segment as some of the other unicorns in this part of the world has done. But the unique part of the services industry is it is less about what you do, but more about how you do it, the approach that you follow as you guide somebody through a transformation journey. And that is truly the secret sauce of Teamers. That is truly what we redefined. If you think about a transformation life cycle, it starts with the visioning and the strategy part. Then there is a bit of solutioning and MVPs and prototypes. And then it moves into, call it a large scale enterprise wide development, implementation, and finally adoption. Now, the way the services industry is structured is that there are some very good companies, like you mentioned, very mature companies who are actually doing a great job in each of these verticals. There are some very good firms who are very good at strategy and consulting. There's some very good firms who do also, technology implementation and operations. But there are very few companies who are able to tie the the various stages of transformation end to end. So I think when Temus was founded, what we said is that, hey, can we bring talent from these different verticals across the value chain of a transformation program and make them work together? That helps make this transformation journey seamless. And if we are able to pull that together, there are a few benefits. One is that it will take less time to go through that transformation journey. It will also cost people less to go through that journey. And that is truly how we thought about differentiating in a market which is otherwise very mature. As I said, some very good players at different parts of the value chain, but very few players who can tie it end to end and ultimately hold themselves accountable and responsible for the value that is delivered in the end.
And Srijay, that's so critical today because this is now Q4 2024. And in Q1 2021, basically everyone was jumping into digital transformation. So it was driven by fear. Today, I think you would agree with me that when you have customer conversations, they're talking about numbers. They're talking about digital
Yes.
transformation, yes, but what's the ROI? How long is it going to take me to implement this? And how fast can my organization reap the benefits? Is that a sense that that's what's
Yeah.
happening right now?
Yeah, Brian, absolutely. And I would say um, the public and the private sector is different because the way they measure value is very different. Let me talk about the private sector because it's easier to conceptualize. Now,
Mhm.
clearly for private sector, value creation is ultimately shareholder value creation. Now, one of the key challenges or key perceptions that I personally found looking at the various customers in the region is people look at transformation from a very cost lens, but
Mhm.
very few people look at it from a value delivery lens. And there is a very important distinction there. When you look at it from a cost lens, you are more, counting nickels and dimes in the sense that, hey, do I spend $10 or $9.50 to buy this technology? But when you're looking at it from a value lens, you are saying that I need to create a certain amount of value, shareholder value, equity value. To get there, technology can be an accelerator. Now, how much am I going to pay or invest to create that value? Is it 5%, 10% of the value that is created? But that is a very different way of looking at
Mhm.
transformation. And I think that people who are able to look at transformation from a value centric lens will invest the right amount of money, the capital and resource allocation that is needed behind that will be more, a lot more justified versus people who look at transformation purely from a cost lens.
Now, Srijay, this is a very good time to ask you around the clients that you've helped
Hmm.
deliver value to, whether it's in the public sector, which is where you are strong, as well as the private sector. Give us some examples of how you've helped clients.
Yes, we have about 30 over clients, which is kind of split between private and private sector. Just to give you a sense, in the private sector, we have worked quite extensively in insurance, financial services, and asset management, and also in the telcos. When it comes to the public sector, we have worked in healthcare, education, defense. So that is kind of the realm of the subsectors we are talking about, as I give you some examples. Now, if you think about the kind of work that we have done, and then I'll kind of quote some examples related to that. The one type of work that we have done is really to deliver this, what I mentioned, end-to-end transformation, what we call vision to value. That is starting with the vision and then going through those stages of solutioning, technology selection, implementation, and finally delivering the value. Really looking at it end to end, looking at it from what the business needs to what the technical requirements are, and actually delivering that value. There are quite a few examples there. For instance, in the telco segment, as you know, a lot of telcos are facing competition against MVNOs who are digital first. Now you look at a telco model, and a very substantial piece of work is working with a telco and actually creating that digital strategy that helps them compete against the MVNOs. Then another example I can give you is in the insurance side. In insurance it's a very interesting industry where you don't have much touch points with your customers, right?
Mhm.
You only have two touch points, right? One is when you sign your contract, and two is when you make a claim. So I think all the insurance companies are struggling. How can I engage with my customers more? This is very important in the context of this part of the world where insurance penetration is very limited, and you want to sell more bite-sized insurance to customers. So
And
here,
Srijay,
Mhm.
and I used to work in the insurance sector, selling solutions, technology solutions. And our mentor and director was a former CEO of Blue Cross. And one of the things he always, and that stayed with me for 30 years, and he said, insurance is sold, not bought. And that's a critical challenge that you as a consulting company have to help your
Yes,
insurer, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. And the whole point was, how can you engage more with your customers across their life cycle and not just when they make a claim. So what we did is we worked with one of the insurance companies to actually rethink the customer engagement model through digital channels, which is effectively building an app
Right.
where these are all customers, but they are also engaging on various activities that are provided through this app, right? It can be related to health, it can be related to lifestyle, it can be related to many functions that kind of touch somebody's day-to-day life. And that was very important data for the insurance company, because that helped them understand how people spend their time over a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and then come and sell, to your point, sell the right product, curate the right product. Like if somebody's traveling, you kind of know through that engagement channel, and then you're curating travel insurance for them. So I think it's really addressing that pain point in the insurance industry. Like, you can sell more if you have more touch points. So how can we engage more to have more touch points? So this is another good example, just like the telco example, where there is a problem statement. Technology can be a solution, but ultimately you're delivering value, which is, and as telco's ability to compete against an MVNO, an insurance company's ability to penetrate their customer base and sell more. So that is one type of work. I'll give you another
Mhm.
interesting dimension of work, which I think we focus on, which is also on what I call human-machine interaction. This is very important because when you think about technology, um, people think about adoption in the classical old school mindset, think about adoption after something has been built. Actually, we want to reverse that playbook to say adoption and change management is extremely important even before you write the first line of code. And that is exactly where what I mean by human machine interaction. There's quite a few pieces of work that we are doing which really focus on that. I'll give you an example, like in the healthcare, in the healthcare sector, together with MOH, HPB, AWS, and Synapse, we are working on this product called Health Kaki, which effectively is using generative AI to create personalized and actionable recommendations based on health goals of a citizen. Now, the thing is, the entire technology stack and the way we want to solution this is really based on the ability, or rather the objective of people actually using it and improving their lifestyle. So again, there are quite a few examples in that whole bucket where we say that, how can you drive adoption and how can that be part of a product development roadmap, and how do we build it? And that is another stream where we have made a lot of traction in our engagements with clients.
Now, Srijay, as part of your improving your offerings, last year you you acquired a company, Decision Science Agency.
Yes.
Tell us about the motivation behind that acquisition and what has been the impact to the company as well as your clients.
Yes, we have. Thanks for the question. I would say that was our second acquisition. We did a first acquisition, Dream Cloud, and I'm going to cover them both holistically. When we founded Temus, one of our objectives was also to look for good small and medium-sized companies in the region and actually what I call turbocharge their growth. So when we looked at Dream Cloud, they were experts in low code. Low code is a coding methodology where you can actually drag and drop and write code in a very, very efficient, cost and time efficient manner. We acquired this company, and I'm very pleased to say that Temus and Dream Cloud coming together was able to double Dream Cloud's presence in the market. It's just because we were able to work together with the synergies and really multiply. Now, when it came to decision science, which was your question, decision science historically very strong in insurance and also public sector. And one of the key capabilities that we acquired, that we kind of absorbed, is our ability to run complex public sector projects. Public sector, as I said, the way you think about project management in the public sector is different from the private sector, and the familiarity of that, and not just the methods and the processes, but also the technology, right? And the technology stack in the public sector is very important. So what decision science helped us is to accelerate our ability to do more in the public sector space.
Now, Srijay, we're at the end of we're in the final quarter of 2024. What are the plans for Temus in the next 12 to 24 months? Where are you going to see the growth? Where is the growth going to come from? Especially now, this is where I've got to ask you, using your Temasek lens and the complex geopolitical situation right now, how are you going to navigate that as a company, and where do you see the growth?
Yes, Brian, I think maybe I'll get the geopolitical angle out of the way first. I think the fact that we are committed to building capabilities in Singapore, and that a lot of the individuals or talent who are trained and eventually become a core part of Temus over the next 12, 18 months, not just 12, 18 months, but next 5 to 10 years, is absolutely critical when we think about building that digital infrastructure in Singapore and supporting it in-house. And Temus was created pretty much to build that, to do that. So I think that is one. The second thing is, as we think about the next 12, 18 months, there are a few things that I see pressing, and we are trying to see how we can solve. I think one is, if you think about cloud, um, value, what we call value realization on the cloud is, once people have moved to the cloud, there is costs go down, but then costs can come back up if you have not optimized your applications to the cloud. And we are seeing a bit of that trend in the private sector, and Temus wants to be a solution to that. So I think value realization in the cloud, how we go about re-architecting, recoding, and making applications work more effectively and efficiently in the cloud is one area that we want to focus on. The second thing I kind of mentioned, which is low code. We are strong believers in the power of low code and its ability to, what I call, bring the barrier of transformation down. Now, you asked about some of the trends, right? One of the trends that we see is that, a lot of, if you leave some of the MNCs out of the equation, then a lot of the mid-tier companies don't know where to start. And when they don't know where to start in digital transformation, they just feel that, and they do nothing about it, they feel that the barrier to transformation is very high, because they get worried. Hey, do I need to bring in a consulting firm? Hey, then do I need to bring a technology firm, and the cost goes up. So I talk about low code because low code is one such technology that can bring the barrier to transformation down, where you can really build applications, complex applications, in 3 to 4 months at one third the size of development team, and a cost that is significantly lower. And that is one area that we want to, push, double down, and really engage with our clients. I would say a third area that we are very focused on next 12, 18 months. No surprises, generative AI, and there is a lot of, news around generative AI. But I would say that where we are really focused on comes back to that barrier to transformation lens. How can we bring the barrier to transformation down? If you think about the generative AI space, there's actually a lot of investments happening on the supply side, which is data centers, semiconductors, companies who are building these foundation models. But there is very little, I would say, or very limited value creation we see on the demand side, which is the real economy companies. And there, I think one of the key challenges is there is a lot of POCs and experiments happening, but nothing that is graduating to an enterprise-wide application. So it is there that we are working with a few clients to build some accelerators that can help people go through, or leapfrog from a POC stage to something that is more enterprise ready in a cost and a time efficient manner. And I think over time, we are going to build these assets that are kind of tied to certain workflows or certain enterprise tasks that hopefully are accelerators and applicable horizontally across multiple sectors. These, I would say, are the three main areas that we are looking to focus on as we think about client engagements over the next 12, 18 months.
Srijay, it's been a fascinating conversation. It's been very informative for me. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we end the conversation?
Yeah, maybe one thing, and this is my my experience from Temus, growing from 0 to 450 people, and also working with clients where we have delivered value and where we are in the process of delivering value. There's one message I want to leave behind, which is that technology is just a means to an end. Process and people are extremely important. Actually, technology applied in the wrong process has not non-optimal outcomes. So I would really, really encourage people to think hard about, are your processes right? Think hard about, do you have the right people who can lead your organization through this transformative era? And that is core to making the most use of technology, generative AI, everything else that is otherwise available in the toolbox.
Srijay, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Brian. The pleasure is all mine. Take care.
Now we've been speaking to Srijay Ghosh. He's the founding member and chief revenue officer at Temus. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.